Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll be comparing the winning MS600 boxing gloves with the Tigrao Japanese boxing gloves. So check it out. Alright guys, so today we're having a Japanese boxing glove showdown. I'll be comparing the winning MS600 16-ounce lace-up boxing gloves with the Tigrao Japanese-made 16-ounce lace-up boxing gloves. From a cost perspective, the winnings currently on the Winning USA website are $420 for the MS600 model. Now keep in mind, the prices change depending on size. So the larger size you go, so 14, 16 ounce winnings will be typically more expensive than the 8 or 10 ounce gloves. And also the current market for winning boxing gloves is kind of crazy right now. All the prices are really inflated. So you're really seeing prices, $600, $700, $800, all the way to $1,000 for custom winning. So there's a huge variation in pricing when it comes to winning boxing gloves. But if we were to talk about, I guess, MSRP, if you want to call it, currently on the official Winning USA website, the 16-ounce lace-ups are $420. Now, when it comes to the Tigrao gloves, these are essentially all a custom glove. You have to email Tigrao. It is a one-person boutique manufacturer. And the gloves, just depending on how you convert over from the Japanese yen to whatever currency you're using, are about starting at around $260, $270 on up. Now, there's a lot of variables with that. It all depends on the type of leather you use, whether you go with metallics and other exotic looking skins, or if you just decide to go with the solid colorway. So there is some variables with that. But for the sake of pricing, generally speaking, they start at around $275 on up. And now, this video portion is going to be really just a first person view from my perspective. That way you guys can see the gloves close up next to each other. They're both in 16 ounces, so that will give you an idea in terms of sizing profile. And then afterwards, I will put the gloves on and give you guys my take on how the gloves actually feel, how the padding feels over my knuckles, the finger compartment, wrist support, all that good stuff. So first things first, the winnings really need no introduction. These gloves have pretty much been the benchmark for boxing gloves for years now. They're made of full genuine leather. I'd say the leather on here has a little bit of a texture. It's more of a smooth leather, but it does have a slight texture to it and has a nice satin finish. You do have their standard winning Fighting Sports World logo that is looks like a heat transfer onto the back of the leather. Again, you can see that it has the double stitching on the wrist support, where the Tigrao is one large flat cuff on the back. You'll also notice that the stitch pattern on authentic winnings, again, there's a lot of fakes out there, it usually has a much wider stitch pattern, and you notice that they double back on 3 of the loops on the back of the glove. So 1, 2, 3, and typically on the side 1, 2, 3. Now, of course, over the years, they may have some modification that they do to the manufacturing, so that might change, but you can see they do a really good job in terms of stitching on the back of the wrist support, and it has a more wider stitch, where you can see the Tigrao is a little bit more of a narrow stitch in terms of the thickness of the stitching. So you do have, again, the thinner portion of the wrist support up top and the thicker one down below. You do have that rubberized winning patch that is stitched on the back that has their logo. The Tigrao is actually a patent leather material throughout the entire back. Now, that was an option that I chose. You don't have to get this patent material, and you can see that it does have that metallic blue underneath that patent material with the Tigrao written down there. So I did go with that patent over that metallic gold. And again, you can see right there, the leather, the inside of the liner in the hand compartment on winnings is going to be their traditional navy blue polyester satin liner. You also have the tags on the inside that show 16 ounces, made in Japan, all that good stuff right there. And the laces on here, authentic winning laces, will be circular laces with no tips at the end. So the ends are cut off on authentic winnings. Coming over to the Tigrao, I have gold piping. Again, that's my own choice in color. You have also rounded laces with cut off tips, but what Tigrao does is he ties a knot at the end right there. So you do have that. He ties the knot at the end. You can obviously untie that if you wanted to, but very similar. The laces on the winnings has a little bit more of a softer, spongier feel to the laces, a little bit more lighter, where the Tigrao has a little bit more weight to them and a little bit thicker. I feel like the cotton they use, the fabric they use in this material, or the thread you want to call it, is a little bit more thicker and doesn't have the same amount of stretch that the winning does. And on the inside, the liner on the Tigrao, just like I did in my review video of these gloves, is definitely more of a rigid type of canvas liner compared, you guys can hear that, compared to the winning, which is very soft and smooth. So there's the difference in the liner there. On the inner portion of the Tigraos, it says made in Japan. That's actually stitched in. It's a little raised up where it has that logo, but it is stitched in with that made in Japan. So you can see it has a little bit of a raised feel to it. And then again, I went with this metallic flake, which I think looks amazing. It's gold metallic and it's almost like polychromatic. I think that looks just awesome. I don't think I have any other gloves that have ever had that type of metallic. And the metallic blue, I have it split down the middle, and you can see the gold piping right there. You'll notice the stitch pattern on the gloves kind of start at the same spot, where the stitching on the Tigrao is a little closer to the inner piping, where the winning kind of flares out wider and comes down. So you can see how it comes down, and then it ends there at the very bottom piping, again, blue piping. And same thing with the Tigrao, kind of comes down and ends at the piping and stitches around. You do have 16 ounces. It does say Tigrao vertically right there. You can see that there's double stitching that comes across that cuts off the padding. The padding on the back of the Tigraos, I'd say, is about a ½ inch of firm density foam padding. The inside wrist is about a ½ inch as well of firm density foam padding. The winnings are about, I'd say, ½ inch of medium density padding and about 1/4 of an inch of medium to soft density foam padding right here on the winning. So you can see there's a little less thickness and padding on the wrist support compared to the Tigrao. I feel like the Tigrao wrist support wise is a little bit more robust and rigid, where the winning is a little bit softer around the wrist area. You'll also know the palm opening for the Tigrao is a little bit larger. It kind of comes up and it almost comes to like a point right here, and then comes back around, where the winnings is more circular. And I'll rotate around and show you the right gloves as well. So you can see again that palm opening for the winning is a little bit smaller, where the Tigrao is a little bit larger. And you'll also notice another thing is going to be the piping around the thumb opening. You'll notice that it starts right here for the Tigrao and it kind of comes up. And also for the winning, I see the Tigrao thumb opening for where your thumb enters the glove. It's a little bit more accommodating in the Tigraos than it is in the winning gloves. Coming up to the grip bar is very large and very solid. In the Tigrao, it feels almost like a rubber hose. And the winning feels very solid as well, very robust. And it feels, again, like a rubber hose, almost like a piece of foam roll, on the inside. So that feels really good as well. And again, you can see, again, just that signature stitching from winning that you would expect, that really wide stitch pattern. Coming to the top, you do have an attached thumb in black, another signature look of winning. They do have a black attached thumb. And coming here to Tigrao, they also decided to go with the black attached thumb. Finger compartment wise, you'll notice that I'd say they're very comparable in terms of the way they bend and fold over from a depth perspective. You'll also notice that Tigrao has stitching at the fingertip compartment. I don't know if that's just cosmetic or they do that to actually insert the foam through that part of the leather. But they do have that stitching there, and I'm not really a big fan of stitching, especially on the strike surface or any type of surface that's going to that's going to get hit. So if you're going to parry a shot, it's probably going to take a good amount of shots coming in if you open your palm up. You also notice that on the inside is completely flat on the winning gloves in terms of no stitching, where again Tigrao has additional stitching on the inner portion of the thumb right there. No ventilated holes on either glove. So the Japanese don't really have a big thing for ventilation when it comes to their gloves. And you'll notice that both gloves don't have ventilated holes. Thumb position, you'll notice that thumb position is a little bit more linear, kind of more upwards with the winnings. You can see it kind of comes up and is a little bit more in line with the glove, where the Tigrao flares out a little bit this way, that direction. But in terms of sizing, they're very comparable. I'd say that the winning tip is a little roomier towards the tip end, where the Tigrao kind of narrows out right there. But you can see from a length perspective that the Tigrao is slightly longer than the winning. The winning's a little bit more on the shallow side. So there you have it. And again, you can see the leather on both. Leather looks great on both gloves. The Tigrao texture, I'd say, again, it's more of like a satin finish as well, just like the winnings. I feel like the leather on the winnings feels a little bit more supple, where the Tigrao has a supple feel, but feels a little bit more rigid, a little bit more rugged feeling than the winnings. So there you guys have them next to each other. And here is the right glove as well, so you guys can see. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and put these gloves on so you guys can see how they look next to each other and kind of get an idea in terms of sizing, how these gloves compare. All right, so starting off with the left gloves, I'll put these next to each other so you guys can see the height and the width of the gloves are very similar. So in terms of height, I would say that the gloves are almost identical in height from the bottom of the cuff to the top. Basically, I call it like the crown of the glove. So this is basically where your index finger or your index knuckle would sit. But you can see both gloves are pretty much the same dimensions, and even the width of the gloves are pretty close in terms of width. So you can see from the back of the glove, rotating it around to the front, you guys have the front perspective. I would say maybe the winnings are a hair wider, but that's just by eyeballing it, not by much. But you can see that the width, again, and the height of the glove are pretty much the same in terms of height and width. Now you'll notice, obviously, the wrist support on the Tigrao is a different design in terms of just the stitching. But you do have that flat cuff, or you have the segmented cuff right there. Rotating to the thumb side, again, like I mentioned earlier, I would say that the winning thumb on the winning glove is a little bit more parallel with the glove, where the Tigrao glove kind of flares out that direction just a little bit more, not by much. And then you can also see the thickness of the padding. I'd say that the thickness of the winnings is probably about maybe 2 inches, where I think the Tigrao is slightly thicker at about maybe 2.5 inches in thickness. So I do think the Tigrao is a slightly thicker glove, and you can also really tell by when I rotate on the non-thumbed side. So you'll see from this side that the Tigrao is a little bit of a thicker glove overall, not just in the hand compartment where the padding is at, but just in the overall structure. The Tigrao itself is just a thicker feeling glove, where the winning is a little bit thinner and a little bit more compact in terms of thickness of the glove. And that also has a lot to do with the wrist support. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there's definitely more of an emphasis on the wrist support on the Tigrao than there is on the winning, at least when it comes to the padding around the wrist right there. Now, I know one of the most favorite topics is going to be the padding on the gloves, and I'll give you guys my thoughts in terms of padding. Now, these winnings I have here, just to let you guys know, are brand new. I've never used these. These are a dead stock pair. I don't plan on using these. But from a padding perspective, it's a good comparison. The Tigraos I only used a handful of times, so the padding is in perfect condition, to kind of give you guys an example. Now, with the Tigraos, when I'm pushing down on the padding on both gloves and feeling them out, the Tigraos actually both feel similar to the touch on the initial push. So both feel pretty soft, but the more you push down and the harder you push into it, the Tigrao has more give. So I feel that the Tigraos, when I'm really pushing with a lot of force over the knuckles, is softer. It has a little bit more give around the knuckles. Where the winning, again, these are a little bit more broken in, not by much, where the winnings feel soft to the touch initially, but the more I compress and push over the knuckles, it definitely denses up more. And that's even for gloves that I've used, winnings I've used before, where I've put rounds in the gloves. So initial feel feels very similar, but I would definitely say overall that the Winning glove has a more dense feel once compressed. And that's why a lot of people love the Winnings, because you kind of get that soft feel, but when you really land with a lot of force, it does a good job of kind of hardening up over your knuckles and providing you that layer of shock absorption and protection. And I feel like the Tigrao does that as well, but it is definitely a little bit softer, and you can really kind of feel it. If you were to use your fingers almost like a clamp and clamp the foam together, you know, in terms of trying to see if your fingers can touch, you can definitely get more of a squeeze with the Tigrao padding, and then you can squeeze with the Winning. I feel like this is a lot harder to try to get my thumb and my index finger to meet each other, if that makes sense. So definitely a Tigrao feels softer in that regard when it comes to the padding. So again, show you guys kind of the side profile next to each other. You guys can compare that. Now, let me go ahead and put the gloves on. I'll start with the left Winning, and then I'll put on the right Tigrao, because obviously I want to get a feel for both gloves. And so first things first, first thing you notice is going to be the liner. The liner is definitely more smoother on the Winning. It feels very comfortable, smooth. The Tigrao definitely feels more rugged and rough. And that liner on the inside of the Tigrao goes all the way through into the thumb, as well as the finger compartment as well. You can feel it throughout the Winning. Also, you can feel that smooth polyester satin liner throughout the entire glove. Thumb positioning wise, again, I feel like the Winning is a little bit more parallel. So when I make a fist, I feel like I have a great amount of room. I don't ever feel like my thumb's gonna jam in the Winning. I feel like the positioning and the way my thumb is placed feels really good, and the piping feels good. Now there's gonna be a little bit of a break-in period with that thumb piping, and I definitely feel the same way with the Tigrao, although the Tigrao feels a little bit like a hair roomier in this bottom portion where the fat part of my thumb is at. The room on the tip of the Tigrao is good as well. There is kind of, again, more of a slight forward bend to it, but I still don't feel like my thumb has any issues with jamming when I use these gloves for training. And you can see both attached thumbs on the glove do a good job of keeping your thumb in. One thing you'll also notice that the Tigrao attached thumb is slightly longer compared to the Winning attached thumb. So you can see that the thumb on the Tigrao, that thumb attachment is a little bit bigger. I'm trying to see if I can capture it in the video. So it's a little bit bigger. Finger compartment is damn near identical in terms of depth. So the depth feels pretty identical. Both have their own version of a secondary grip bar. So you have your main grip bar, which you can feel really good on both. I feel like the grip bar is a little bit more noticeable in the Tigrao because of that harder rubber hose they use. So when I'm rolling my hand into a fist, I can feel that grip bar a little bit more compared to the Winning. But the Winning has a rolled piece of leather, that same leather material on the finger compartment that you can really grip onto, which I feel feels really good. The Tigrao has a piece of rolled leather, but it has a felt piece over it, like a felt liner that covers that, so you can really dip your finger in and grab that felt. It kind of reminds me of what some of the Mexican companies use, like Grant, that has a piece of felt. But the felt only covers that secondary grip bar. The felt does not drop into this finger pocket. And it's the same thing with the Winning. That leather piece for that secondary grip bar does not drop into that finger pocket. But in terms of depth, they both feel really good. They're not too wide, not too narrow, not too roomy, or not too tight. I say that it's a really good fit on the inside of the glove. The wrist support, I would say, is definitely more rigid and a little bit more supportive in the Tigrao compared to the Winning. The Winning feels good, but again, I feel like the Tigrao puts a little bit more of an emphasis on the rigidity around the wrist. And once you have this laced in and locked it feels really good. You'll also notice that the opening on the palm plays a key factor in the comfort of the hand. Now, the reason I say that is sometimes if the palm opening is a little bit too small right here, it can kind of suffocate your hand a little bit. And it doesn't with the Winning, but it's just something that maybe if you have a little bit of a larger hand, that the Tigrao might be a little bit more accommodating. But again, the more you use the gloves, the more they stretch out over time and break in. You'll see that the logos look great on both gloves. You have the Tigrao logo with the dual axis with the logo on the back. One thing I also did want to mention is that Tigrao is also the same manufacturer that makes the Adishori boxing gloves by Adidas, the Adidas Japanese boxing gloves. So that's kind of where it kind of caught wind, where a lot of people would see the Adishori gloves and would wonder, who makes them. And then eventually, obviously, Tigrao came out, and a lot of people started doing their own investigating online and found it. So I believe he still makes it for Adidas, but he also has his own line, obviously his own line of boxing glove that he makes between Adishori and the Tigrao line. Now, as far as being able to order the gloves, I did mention the pricing earlier. Winning starting at $420 on up, and there's just it varies so much with Winnings, and these are about $275 plus or minus. Tigraos, you have to email them. I'll put the email in the description box, so for those of you that are interested, you guys can email and start your order. Winnings, I mean, there's just multiple websites. You can go through Winning USA and try to get a hold of Mr. Kazumichi. There's probably a 50-50 chance that you'll probably get a hold of him. It just depends. And then there's all these other websites you can go through. I know Super Rare sells them, Boxing Colorways. I mean, there's several other third-party retailers that sell Winnings, Bob's Fight Shop. There's a couple. So they basically get the gloves and then they resell them at their price. So it just depends where you get them. I would stay away from eBay unless it's a trusted seller on eBay, just because there's so many fakes out there. So it varies with that. Between the two, if you're going to ask the question of, well, which one should I get? Which one should I get? If you're really looking for something and you're not on a budget and you have money to spend, I know a lot of people are going to be like, just get the Winnings because everybody has them. But I think Tigrao is a great glove. I really do think that's a great glove, and I think it's very underrated. And obviously, not a lot of people know about these yet, or as so far. And for the price that you're getting these at, I mean, you're really currently at the prices they're at. I mean, you're getting this glove for basically a third or a half of what you're paying for this, and even more than that because the prices are so inflated. So currently, if I were to choose between the two, I love my Tigraos, I love my Winnings, but I'd probably go with the Tigraos just because of the cost alone is enough to sway me to get these gloves. Really high quality, and they're unique. They look great. They're made in Japan as well, just like Winnings. And you don't have to pay super ridiculous prices for them compared to the Winnings. So that's my opinion on that. I'm not saying that the Winnings are bad or anything like that, but when you're looking at gloves now, you're really trying to balance out and kind of go over the pros and cons, especially when it comes to cost, right? Not everybody has $900 to spend on some 16-ounce Winnings. So that's one big thing. And even at the $420 price point, it's still an expensive glove, right? Winnings have never been cheap. So do keep that in mind, where I think Tigrao definitely comes at a really good, fair price point. I mean, the weight's almost on point. Both are 15.8 ounces. So I definitely feel like it's a very solid glove for the price. So I would give the nod to the Tigraos just based on price alone, and it's a very solid glove. Has a rough liner. There are a couple key differences between the two, but not enough to sway me to say, okay, I don't like these at all and I want to go with the Winning. I think the Tigrao does a really good job of standing up. So if you guys have any questions or comments, you guys know where to put them down below. I will put the link in the description box to where you can order the Tigraos, basically just his email. With the Winnings, I'll just put the official Winning USA website. From there, it's really up to you guys, who you guys want to use. I don't like making recommendations on where to purchase from, because that, to me, feels like I'm being biased towards certain companies that are selling them more than others. So it's up to you, man. Just reach out to those companies, try to get the best deal you can on pricing, and then buy it from them. Just make sure they're authentic. Don't go through eBay. So I'll see you guys later. Take care. Peace.